Like pretty much every other day here in Montana, my plans for the day have changed significantly. I am a little bit at the mercy of Mother Nature today. We are expecting some pretty serious winds later on in the day.
Hey girl. Hey mama.
With gusts expected between 50 and 70 miles an hour. There are a bunch of things I need to get nailed down so they don't blow away.
Oh, hey girl.
Pearl has been steadily improving every day. She seems to really be enjoying her mash meals every morning and night. Recently, I've started leaving her blanket off. It is just too warm out, and you can see even with her blanket off, she is still sweating a little bit. I will be really interested to get this girl's metabolic panel test back to see if she does maybe have PPID, which would contribute to an extra thick coat like the one she has right now. After a quick poop check, I am going to continue on with my chores for the morning. I have been finding a few more quids around her feed bin, so I am interested to see what her teeth look like as well. Given her age, I would not be surprised if she has some that are loose and wearing down and need to come out. Besides the stray quid every now and again, she is not really showing any other signs of discomfort. I do want to get her a little bit more healthy before I have to sedate her at the vet, so I'll probably wait another week, maybe until around the first of the year, to bring her into the vet and get her teeth checked. While I was feeding the boys this morning, I noticed that somebody got their leg caught in the fence and broke it. So this morning I'm going to go around and make sure none of the horses have their legs scraped up.
Peter?
Stewie looked fine and Pete looks fine. The fence in this dry lot has the black electric tape, and then it does have some double strand twisted smooth wire. This fence does have some weak points along the end where you can tighten it, so when the horse does get tangled up in it, it does release rather easily. I cannot find any scrapes or cuts on the horses, so it must have just been one trying to get to the hay on the other side of the fence. It is right around 9 o'clock, and according to the weather, I have 2 more hours before it really starts blowing hard. I'm going to continue to do my regular chores, fill up all of the water troughs, and then I am going to get some hay down for later this evening. But before I do that, I am going to have to very quickly fix this fence because I don't want the horses getting hurt in it. Thankfully, there was enough of the fence wound up in the little tightener that I could easily put the fence back together in a pinch. It's not the strongest fix that I've done, but it'll hold for a couple of days until I have time to fix it a little bit more thoroughly. Since it is going to be almost hurricane force winds, I am going to pick up all of the horses' feed bins and make some meals for later tonight. There is a really good possibility that with the intense wind that the hay is just going to blow right out of these feed bins. So in addition to getting their meals ready in the buckets, I am going to get some hay bags ready. This winter, I've been trying to get my hay down a little bit differently. I'm making little steps, so it's hopefully a lot less dangerous for me.
Tiny! Tiny! What are you doing? Hey, Tiny! I know. Girl, good girl.
I'm not really sure how well this tarp is going to hold being on a slant like this. Typically in high winds, I have the tarp situated so the wind can just kind of blow under the tarp and not blow it off of the top of the hay. Thankfully, we're not supposed to be getting any rain or snow, so in the event that the tarp does blow off, it won't ruin my entire stack of hay. Since I do need to get down a couple 100 pounds of hay, this will be a perfect test for the new turd-mobile. I think Tiny can tell that there's a storm coming because she is extra meowy today. Once Tiny is out of the way and I adjust the dump bed to the right position, I can get my load of hay. After a quick little snuggle session with Tiny, I decide that it would be a perfect time to get Scarlet and Ziggy turned out before the wind picks up too much. I am going to secure my tarp and put my feed tubs back into the gator. It isn't too windy yet, but I can definitely tell that there is a storm coming in.
Come on, girl.
I'm a little bit surprised there's so much snow on the ground. It is supposed to be getting very close to 50 degrees once the storm blows in. I would not be surprised at all if most of this snow is melted by this evening. It seems like Ziggy is a little bit jealous of all the attention that Scarlet is getting, so before I head back in and continue on with my chores, I'm going to give them both a little bit of a snuggle session. Just to keep them occupied, I am going to give them a few pounds of the alfalfa I just brought down. Hopefully this will keep them from getting into too much trouble.
Eat your mash.
All of the little sprinkly leaves that came down with this new hay is the perfect kind of hay for Pearl to be eating. Over the last week or so, I've really been trying to figure out how much hay is too much hay for Pearl. Since she is having a harder time chewing on the stems, I am making sure she has plenty of nice green alfalfa leaves that she can eat. This will really help her gain weight a lot faster.
What do you think, Tiny? What's wrong?
Oh, Tiny. Even though I am chugging along pretty steadily this morning, Tiny lets me know that I need to hurry it up if I want to get all my chores done in time. It has been super handy to be able to back up the load of hay into the barn and get all of the meals ready. Today's storm should be a good test to see if Nigel's little tent will stay up.
Nigel.
I have made a few modifications to it. It does have a 4x4 base on the bottom that the actual frame is screwed onto. The cover is also stapled down to the frame, so hopefully that is enough reinforcement to survive the storm. I'm going to kind of play it by ear, and if it looks like it's getting too windy, I will bring Nigel into the barn.
Tiny, what's wrong? What are you doing?
After a quick little snack break, I am ready to start preparing all of the meals for the next 2 feedings. Even though we are supposed to be getting substantial winds, I don't think any of the
Nigel.
horses are really going to be bothered too much by it. I had thought about bringing
Frisco,
Pearl
Bale,
inside,
Bale
but
boy.
since she's used to living out on basically the plains of Wyoming, I don't think it's going to bother her one bit.
Tiny, what are you doing?
Unfortunately, the way this barn is built, when it gets super windy, it makes like a little tornado inside. Every little piece of dust and shavings kind of end up everywhere. It is a little bit of a toss-up whether or not the horses are safer outside or inside when we get strong winds like this. Even though they do have access to a stall, Frisco, Bill, and Prim do prefer to stand outside in the wind. Even if I do take all of the shavings out of the stall, there's still quite a bit of dust that blows around inside here. I am always trying to do what's best for the horses, but sometimes it is a bit of a toss-up. It really isn't that uncommon for us to get a rogue windstorm like this every couple of months, so the horses are pretty used to it. The duration of the storm is only supposed to be for about 12 hours, so I think they'll be able to survive in their normal
Tiny?
places. I am a little bit worried about Tiny though. If she finds herself outside when it starts really gusting, she may not be able to get back into the barn. Unfortunately, even this new bale that I opened up of this alfalfa is pretty dusty and dry. During the winter, I do like to put hay in these nets if it's possible. Typically, it's a little bit tricky when I am putting it in the back of a big truck because it does not fit into the barn, but with this new little machine, it does make it perfect for stuffing these bags full. Hopefully, if it gets really windy, this will prevent most of the horses' dinner from blowing away. I'm not sure how much grass hay I have left for the winter, but with it staying pretty mild out, I do think that I'll have enough to get through to the spring. For now, each horse is getting about 4 pounds of grass hay and the rest is the alfalfa. The only horse that is getting more grass hay than the others is Scarlet. Young horses like her are at risk for developing some orthopedic problems if they're fed too much calcium at this stage in their growth. Since I'm now done preparing all of the meals, I'm going to continue on with my regular
Tiny.
chores.
Tiny, whoa!
As usual, Tiny pops out from seemingly nowhere to inspect my work. Another task that is not super fun when it's really gusting outside is cleaning stalls, so I'm going to try and get through these as quickly as possible. I've been slowly adding on strips to Scarlet's door, and today I'm going to add 2 more. She really doesn't seem afraid of the strips, and I'd like to get this a solid door before real winter comes. I can tell the temperature has definitely started to shift, so I have to shed 1 layer. I do need to keep my coveralls on because I'm trying to not get covered in poop today. If this warm weather continues, I'm going to have to buy a pair of coveralls that are not insulated to get through these warmer days. I know as soon as I purchase them, the weather will probably get below freezing again, so right now I'm just going to suck it up and be a little bit warm. Halfway through the stalls, I definitely hear the wind picking up outside, and it looks like Nigel has taken shelter on the edge of his shed. I'm not too sure that my chores take less time now. They are a little bit more convenient because I can dump the bed without having to hurt my back. It is super handy too when I have to strip the stalls like today with the Ziggy's. I can pretty much clean out the entire barn, all of the stalls and the runs outside with just one load, so that is pretty nice. Frisco Bill has been getting a little bit stocked up with this warmer weather, so every day when I clean the pens, I just open his gate and he can run around. He never really strays too far, so I don't get too worried that he's gonna actually run off. Here lately, he has been hanging out with Ziggy and Scarlet looking for little snacks under the snow. Prim gets a little bit upset about this, but if she's distracted with the rest of her breakfast, she doesn't get worried about it for too long. I think sometimes Frisco gets a little bit annoyed by how aggressive she is with her love, so a few minutes apart from him every day is not going to kill her. Since Frisco seems to be missing Scarlet a little bit more often these days, I think today would be the perfect day to put them in together and see how he reacts with Ziggy in the mix.
Go in? Come here, old boy.
Frisco has been turned out with Ziggy. They didn't really seem to mind each other too much. Frisco also got turned out with Scarlet a lot when I very first got her when she was just a tiny baby. It'll be really interesting to see how these three get along. It seems like Ziggy is a little bit upset about it. Scarlet wastes no time trying to get Frisco to play with her. But much like Ziggy, Frisco is a very good disciplinarian. One thing that was a little bit different between how Scarlet and Frisco interacted was that Scarlet did act a little bit more like Frisco was her mother. Very interesting, especially given the age when I got her. We figured she was maybe 4 months old, but I'm thinking now she was probably closer to 2 months old. Even after so much time, she did follow him around like he was her mother. I did catch her licking him and looking for something to nurse on, which is a little bit sad because she was taken from her mother much too soon. Frisco is generally unimpressed with this behavior, but he has been around a lot of young horses and is really good about giving them manners. She's licking you?
Hey, girl.
I'm really surprised that Ziggy and Frisco are not better friends. Although they are both a little bit on the older side, Ziggy is still 11 years younger than Frisco. I do think he is a little bit excited to have a break from Scarlet pestering him, but after a while I think he is going to get a bit jealous. Horses really are disgusting animals, and after a few minutes of being turned out, I noticed that Frisco was munching on one of Scarlet's old poops.
Bill. Ow. Oh, no. Hey. Gross.
The last thing I need is Frisco choking on a frozen turd ball, so I'm gonna take him out and he can go check on Prim.
Sorry. Go on, old boy. Come on.
With Frisco secured, I am going to give him a few more snacks for the day, but then I really need to get my tarp secured because the wind is starting to pick up outside. One thing that is almost always true for the weather in Montana is that the animals will know long before I do that the weather is going to turn bad. Right as the wind started to pick up a little bit more, there were a ton of geese that came and bedded down in the neighbor's field. It was pretty ominous, but really cool to see so many geese in one spot. I feel like I'm pretty prepared for a big windstorm. I've just got to get this tarp secured, and then I do have a few odds and ends to pick up just so they don't blow away. The winds are definitely not 60 mile an hour yet, but they are strong enough to blow me off of my feet a little bit. With the wind getting a little bit more intense, I do need to check in on Nigel, who looks perfectly happy to be out in the elements.
Nigel! Nigel!
Over about the course of 10 minutes, the wind really started to pick up. I had just finished rinsing out the gator and picking up all of the loose things around the property when it really started blowing. Even though I was a little bit uncomfortable outside, it looked like all of the horses were doing regular horse things, totally unfazed by the wind. When there was a little bit of a break in the gusts, I did head back outside to clean up the few odds and ends that I was using for Pearl's quarantine.
Come inside!
One thing that was really crazy during the gusts, it did blow all of the ice off of the top of my haystack. With a little bit of a break in the weather, I decided it would probably be the perfect time to get Ziggy and Scarlet back inside.
Tiny! Zig! Bear, come on. Get you, buddy. Oh, hey, Zig.
You can see from this view that it is pretty windy out. Not as windy as it's expected to get a little bit later on, but this is plenty windy enough for me. The horses still seemed pretty calm, so hopefully I'll be able to get them back in the barn without any trouble. Even though Scarlet didn't really run around very much today, it looks like she doesn't have too much extra energy. Compared to when I turned them out a few hours ago, the snow has really started to melt out here.
Ooh, girl. Oh. It's okay, girl.
Scarlet was really having a lot of trouble walking past the haystack because the tarps were flapping, and then there was another one on the ground that was scaring her.
Hey, hey, hey. Whoa, whoa, Mare? Mare?
With the tarps
Whoa,
flapping
whoa.
outside and the plastic sheets
Whoa,
flapping inside,
whoa,
it seemed like
whoa.
there wasn't a safe place for Scarlet to go. Every time she went in the barn, she would get scared,
on,
and then
girl.
go outside and she would get scared. Eventually, she was able to pull herself together and realize that the
Easy,
wind was
girl,
just
easy.
causing
You're
all
okay.
of this extra noise.
You're okay. You're all right. Hold on, girl.
At this point, I did wish that I had cleaned out the barn prior to bringing these horses in, but eventually Scarlet settled down and was able to stand inside the barn relatively calmly. As soon as I released her into her stall, she got spooked and ran outside. Kind of a hard day for this girl, and she totally missed the fact that I added a few more curtains to her stall door. And it looks like even with the extra wind, Nigel is perfectly fine to stand outside by his little shed, which is holding strong even in this wind. Before it gets any windier, I do have to clean up all of these little hay particles inside the barn just so they're not blowing around getting in the horse's eyes. It was nice to see that Tiny climbed up into her hay pile as soon as the wind really started picking up. I'm going to put all of this extra hay in some of the stalls, and then I am going to use the leaf blower to get all of the little bits out of the aisle. Once Scarlet calmed down, I think she realized that there were a little bit more plastic sheets than there normally are, and she took a little bit of time to investigate them. They really aren't that scary for her, unless of course they are whipping around in the wind, which I just found out. It looks like all of her previous training to be curious and investigate her surroundings are paying off. I did give Scarlet a tiny bit of a snack just so she knew she was a good girl for coming in the barn. Another really big gust came and spooked her to go outside, but it seemed like she was getting more used to it as time went on. With the help of my big giant fan and the leaf blower, I got the barn cleaned out relatively quickly.
You okay, Zig?
Ziggy seemed a little bit upset about the whole situation, but at this point I am pretty prepared for the rest of the big storm.
Nigel!
I was going to bring Nigel inside, but he was just standing out in the middle of the pen, not even next to a windbreak, so I think he is going to be perfectly fine to stay out for the little storm. Tiny is all tucked in her hay pile, and it looks like there are hundreds and hundreds of geese that flew in to be protected from the wind. I think over the last 15 minutes it's gotten 10 degrees warmer, so all of the snow is now really melting. I am gonna go get the tarp I have out in the big arena and the ball that blew away. And I didn't notice it until I went back through the footage, but it looks like Pearl got in the first couple of trot steps I've seen out of her so far. It seems as though she was not too impressed with all of the scary things I was carrying around.
Pearl.
She is looking a heck of a lot better than when I picked her up at the auction, so hopefully she'll continue to improve. For Christmas this year, I asked my husband to please get my old farm truck fixed. It's been sitting for about a year, and I initially thought that I could just fix the starter on my own, but I haven't found time to do it, so that is going to be the perfect present for me this year.
You're gonna blow away. Go on. Tiny. Get in the barn. Come on. Come on.
It is now around 2 o'clock, which is well past the time they thought it was going to start gusting really hard. It looks like there are still quite a few geese that are coming in to bed down for the storm. They are calling for winds up to 70 miles an hour, which is almost hurricane strength winds. I am not super confident that Nigel's little shed will stay up for that, but it's seeming like maybe the amount of wind we're supposed to get was a little bit exaggerated. It does look like the geese are taking it pretty seriously though, so before I head home for a very late lunch, I am going to go around and check to make sure everything is secured.
Oh, little buddy.
When I got back to the barn at around 5 o'clock, it looked like there was a serious melting event that happened.
Hey, ponies.
All of the horses did seem pretty calm in their stalls. There wasn't too much wind.
Ziggo.
Since it didn't seem to be gusting too hard, I am going to give the horses their dinner in the bins tonight and save the bags for tomorrow morning, just in case the wind continues. I spent a lot of the day today getting ready for the windstorm. I'm glad I was well prepared, but I don't think the winds were quite as bad as they had let on. When you live in a very harsh climate, these are the days that are not super exciting. If the warm weather from today is any indication on what the next 2 weeks will be like, I am super excited to have some nicer weather to get Stewie and Prim finally started under saddle. After loading up all the hay bags for tomorrow, I'm finally ready to head home. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned for the next video.